And we begin tonight with breaking news. Fears are mounting that North Korea could detonate its 6th nuclear bomb test at any moment now, as the country says a, quote, big event is coming. And just hours ago, a North Korean official warned they're ready to launch preemptive strikes if the United States shows any signs of military aggression. Joining me now to discuss, Captain Chuck Nash. Captain Nash, apparently America sent what they call these nuke sniffer planes to Japan a couple of weeks ago. So we have been anticipating this for at least 2 weeks, perhaps even longer, understanding how important today is tomorrow with respect to the founding of North Korea. But the implications seem to have mushroomed, no pun intended, in the last 48 hours.
Yeah, the tensions are building and building, Charles. And the United States, it appears we have all the assets in place, everything from detection devices to firepower, which is going to give the president a very broad range of response potential. But the Chinese have been weighing in on this, which is good. I have not seen this much activity from the Chinese ever. I'd like to read you something that comes from a Chinese rag. It's the Global Times, which is published by Communist Party's People's Daily. And it says, as soon as North Korea complies with China's declared advice and suspends nuclear activities, China will actively work to protect the security of a denuclearized Korean nation and regime, which tells me that the Chinese government is going public now and saying to the United States and to the world community, we're talking to the North Koreans, and what we're saying is we are going to extend our umbrella of protection over them if they denuclearize, just as the United States has with treaty obligations with Japan and others. I would suspect, though, the problem with that, Captain Nash, is that it's not the defensive posture that North Korea gives them any sort of sway in this world. It's their ability. If they did not have nuclear weapons, it would be a blight on the map that no one really cared about. And so Kim Jong-un, what advantage would he have by giving up these nukes? At this point, he would have negotiating power on how to extract from the West and from the Chinese. If he continues down this path, the Chinese have leverage over North Korea. They don't control North Korea. So they're going to have, they've got a lot at stake in this too, because here they were thinking, we're just going to push south into the South China Sea, build over these atolls, dredge up sand, put military bases on them, and before anybody knows it, we will have expanded our role and our range down into the South China Sea. And now here's North Korea dragging the Americans back in there with force structure. And if we renuclearize the South, i.e. put U.S. nuclear weapons back in South Korea, reinforce the THAAD position in South Korea, and put THAAD in Japan, this will have undone a lot of work that the Chinese have been patiently doing over the last 10 years. Captain Nash, stay with me. I want to bring in a panel and to add to the conversation here. David Tufari is with us, along with Ford O'Connell. David, everyone's got a lot at stake right now, and again, it's tough for me to fathom North Korea blinking too much, because this is what they export. This is how they flex their muscle. And for someone who's a third-generation dictator to say, hey, just be a regular citizen of the world when you have nothing else to offer, I'm not sure it's going to work.
I agree with you. You know, the main leverage that North Korea has, unfortunately, is its nuclear weapons program. The conversation you just had was really fascinating, especially with respect to focusing on China and whether China really can play a leadership role in resolving this crisis. And we heard very strong words from the Chinese president. He rebuked both North Korea and the U.S., but he also seems to be saying, I will play a role in this, China will play a role in this, in trying to resolve this dispute. That's really absolutely crucial and necessary. China really may be the only country in a position to stop what looks to be a confrontation between the U.S. and North Korea, where there will be a lot of losers. David, of course, we'll ultimately win.
David,
Yes.
I gotta stop you right there. I do agree with you that it's China that can make this happen, but what people have to understand, what President Trump is doing is absolutely right and probably should have been done 20 years ago by President Bill Clinton. Basically, North Korea is months away from fitting a nuclear warhead on an ICBM, and right now China has a population problem of its own where people are moving from the countryside into the cities, and what they don't want to see is 25 million North Korean refugees going into China. So essentially, this is the right time because now it is in China's interest. And what Donald Trump is doing is not to provoke North Korea per se, because the USS Carl Vinson is there for strategic purposes, but sending Mike Pence to South Korea and making all these moves, including with Afghanistan and the missile strikes in Syria, is about telling the Chinese, we're serious. You cannot take your foot off the pedal because it's you alone who can do this.
Well, I don't know why you're yelling, because I pretty much agree with most of those points. I don't really agree with your attitude towards it.
That's not his attitude. Ford likes to talk loud, but I want to get back to Captain Nash for a moment. He's passionate, but let me bring back in Captain Nash, because here's the thing, and you brought up the man-made islands that have been militarized. Yeah. We know that China, Captain Nash, has these enormous plans, if not for global domination, certainly for Asian domination. And part of that is the oil that they see in the South China Sea. They want it, they've claimed it, and I think they're going to snatch it no matter what. So do they build up brownie points of sorts if we have something averted this weekend? And do they build up enough points that we don't come back to them and say, okay, now it's time to dismantle those islands?
Yeah, I think what's going to happen here is there's some kind of a comprehensive thing going on between President Trump and President Xi Jinping. They've talked twice since their meeting at Mar-a-Lago. Now, they're probably not just catching up on how was your trip home. There are things going on here behind the scenes, and they're happening at the very highest levels, president to president. And I think part of this is an understanding that the United States will come to some accommodation with China, but we together, both countries, have to solve this issue. The United States has a tremendous amount at stake here, as do the Chinese, and right now, the thorn in both of our sides is that guy in North Korea, and this has to get solved, because I am certain that President Trump has backed up his statement that if you can't fix this, we will. And I think the Chinese are taking that very seriously.